When you finally release the need for approval, something profound happens within you. For so long, you may have been tied to the opinions, judgments, and acceptance of others, allowing their perception of you to shape your sense of worth. It's exhausting, living in a way where you constantly wonder if you're saying the right thing, wearing the right thing, or making the right choices based on how it will be received by someone else. But the day you stop caring about that approval is the day you reclaim your life. You realize that not everyone will like you, not everyone will understand you, and not everyone will applaud your choices, and that's perfectly fine. You stop letting the fear of judgment guide your steps, and you start moving in the direction that feels true to your heart. Approval seeking is a subtle form of control that other people can have over you, even if they don't intend it. When you are constantly seeking their nod of acceptance, you're placing them in a position of power over your decisions. Their words can lift you up or tear you down, not because they have some magical authority, but because you've allowed their opinion to hold that much weight. Letting go of this need for approval means cutting that invisible string and standing on your own. It's not about becoming cold, rebellious, or disregarding kindness. It's about understanding that your worth is not up for debate. This shift doesn't happen overnight. At first, you may feel uncomfortable, even guilty, for not bending over backward to please everyone. You may question yourself, wondering if you're being selfish or difficult. But over time, you begin to see that people who genuinely care for you don't require you to constantly prove yourself to them. They accept you as you are. Those who pull away when you stop seeking their approval were never invested in the real you. They were invested in the version of you that served their comfort or their ego. This realization frees you even further. Something else changes too, your confidence. Without the constant mental chatter of will they like this or will they be upset, you gain mental clarity and emotional stability. You start trusting yourself again because you no longer outsource your decisions to the court of public opinion. And when you do that, you begin to live a more authentic life. Your conversations become more honest. Your boundaries become clearer, and your energy feels lighter because you are no longer performing for an audience. Another surprising outcome of releasing the need for approval is that you actually become more attractive to others. Not in a physical sense, but in the way you carry yourself. People are drawn to those who are grounded, self-assured, and unapologetically themselves. They can sense when you're not desperate for validation, and that creates an unspoken respect. Ironically, the less you chase approval, the more freely it comes because you are now magnetic in your authenticity. Life becomes simpler too. Decisions that once felt overwhelming are now easier to make because you only have to check in with one voice, your own. And even when you take advice or consider others' perspectives, you filter it through your own values and truth rather than blindly accepting it to avoid disapproval. This is freedom in its purest form, the ability to be yourself without the fear of losing people who were never meant to stay. In the end, you learn that the approval you were chasing all along was your own. Once you give it to yourself fully, you stop begging for it from the world. That is the moment everything changes. When you stop caring about controlling outcomes, you unlock a level of peace that most people never experience. So much of our anxiety comes from the illusion that if we just try harder, plan better, or hold on tighter, we can guarantee the results we want. We obsess over how situations will unfold, how people will respond, and whether life will bend to our will. But the truth is, control is an exhausting game you can never win. The moment you realize you don't need to control every detail, you give yourself permission to breathe. You stop clenching your fists and start trusting that life has its own rhythm and that not everything needs your interference. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring or stop putting effort into what matters. It means you release the desperate need to dictate how every story ends. You still show up, still work hard, still give your best, but you understand that what happens next is not entirely in your hands. This shift in perspective is powerful because it allows you to focus on what you can influence: your mindset, your actions, your energy, while surrendering what you can't. You begin to notice how much unnecessary stress you've been carrying simply because you were trying to play the role of both the author and the universe. Often, the need to control comes from fear of being hurt, fear of being disappointed, fear of losing what you love. But when you stop feeding that fear, you open the door to trust. Trust in yourself, trust in others, and trust in the process of life. You realize that even when things don't go the way you imagined, they can still turn out beautifully. Sometimes the very outcome you were trying to avoid leads you to a place far better than you could have planned. Life has a way of surprising you when you give it space to move. There's also a freedom that comes with not micromanaging every aspect of your relationships. When you stop trying to control how people see you, what they say to you, or how they act toward you, you remove the invisible chains that keep you in constant tension. You stop analyzing every text message, every facial expression, every little detail, because you understand that their actions are a reflection of them, not you. You give people the freedom to be themselves, and in turn, you create room for genuine connection instead of forced harmony. It's amazing how much energy you get back when you're no longer constantly bracing yourself for things to go wrong or constantly pushing for them to go your way. That mental space can now be used for creativity, joy, and self-growth. You begin to live in the present moment instead of living in the what-if scenarios of the future. You start noticing small details: the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the laughter in a friend's voice, the way certain moments feel like they're exactly where you're meant to be. The irony is that when you stop trying to control everything, you often end up making better decisions. You're calmer, more grounded, and more intuitive because you're not clouded by desperation. Instead of reacting from fear, you respond from clarity. And in that clarity, you find that the right opportunities, the right people, and the right timing begin to align almost effortlessly. It's not magic, it's the natural flow of life that's always been there, but now you're finally allowing it to say no. They hide their true thoughts to avoid judgment, and they shape their lives based on what will keep others comfortable. It's an exhausting way to exist because you're always bending, adjusting, and sacrificing pieces of yourself just to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. But when you decide that your worth is not dependent on their opinions, you free yourself from an invisible prison. The truth is, no matter what you do, someone will always have something to say about it. You can live the most careful, cautious life, and you'll still be misunderstood or criticized. The day you understand this deeply is the day you stop giving away your energy to try to win the impossible game of universal approval. You realize that you could be the kindest, most well-intentioned person and still be seen through someone's lens of insecurity, jealousy, or misunderstanding, and that has nothing to do with you. When you let go of the need to please everyone, you start living from a place of authenticity instead of performance. You say what you mean, you set boundaries without guilt, and you make decisions based on your values rather than the pressure of outside voices. This doesn't make you selfish, it makes you real. In fact, the relationships that matter will only grow stronger when you show up as your genuine self. The people who truly belong in your life will respect your honesty, even when it means you don't always say what they want to hear. Another shift that happens is your energy starts flowing into the things that truly matter to you rather than being drained by the constant need to keep everyone happy. You find yourself more focused on your goals, your passions, and your personal growth here and more able to move toward the life you actually want. One of the hardest but most liberating parts of this journey is learning to handle disapproval without shrinking. You develop resilience when you understand that disagreement or criticism is not a threat to your worth. You can listen to feedback without it defining you, and you can walk away from situations or people that demand you be less than who you are. You begin to recognize that the right people will accept you without requiring you to constantly prove yourself. And here's the beautiful part. You start to respect yourself more. Every time you honor your truth over someone else's expectations, you strengthen your self-trust. You learn that you can stand firm even when others don't agree, and that builds a quiet kind of confidence that doesn't need applause to feel valid. This self-respect becomes the foundation for everything else in your life, your relationships, your choices, your sense of peace. The irony is, when you stop caring so much about pleasing everyone, you often end up attracting more genuine respect from others. People can sense when you're grounded in your truth, and that authenticity draws in those who value you for who you really are. You no longer have to chase approval because you've created a life where the only approval that truly matters comes from within. And that's when you realize living to please yourself first is not selfish. It's the beginning of real freedom. When you stop caring about controlling outcomes, life takes on an entirely different rhythm. Most people live in a constant state of mental tension, trying to script every detail of how things should unfold. They want to make sure people behave a certain way, situations resolve in their favor, and plans follow the exact path they've imagined. But life doesn't operate like that. It moves in its own unpredictable flow, and the more you try to force it, the more resistance you create. Letting go of this need to control isn't about becoming passive. It's about understanding the difference between what's yours to influence and what's not. When you release your grip on outcomes, you start living with less anxiety. You're no longer on edge, wondering if this person will respond how you hope, if that job will work out exactly as you planned, or if your efforts will lead to a guaranteed result. Instead, you focus on showing up fully, doing your part with integrity, and then allowing things to unfold naturally. This shift removes an incredible weight from your shoulders because you're not carrying the burden of trying to bend reality into your will every second of the day. It's not that you stop caring about results. You still want the best for yourself, but you detach from the desperation that comes with needing things to happen a certain way in order to feel okay. That detachment brings a calm confidence. You learn to trust the process, to believe that even if something doesn't go the way you expected, it might still be leading you towards something better. This trust isn't naive, it's built on the understanding that life has a bigger view than you do, and sometimes the detours are the very thing that lead you to your true path. Letting go of control also changes how you relate to other people. When you stop trying to control how they act, think, or feel, you give them the freedom to be themselves. You stop manipulating situations to get the reaction you want, and instead you meet people where they are. That creates healthier, more authentic connections because no one is under the silent pressure of living up to your expectations. Ironically, this often inspires better behavior from people, not because you're forcing it, but because they feel respected and trusted. You also start to experience more joy in the present moment. When you're always focused on controlling the future, you miss the beauty of what's happening right now. Your mind is too busy running scenarios, calculating risks, and rehearsing conversations that may never even happen. But when you let go, you start noticing the little moments again, the way the sunlight hits the floor in the morning, the sound of laughter in a quiet room, the small wins that come without planning. You discover that happiness is much less about perfect circumstances and much more about how you allow yourself to experience what's already here. The biggest shift comes in your resilience. When you're no longer attached to one fixed outcome, you become adaptable. Disappointments don't crush you because you see them as redirection rather than failure. You stop seeing challenges as roadblocks and start viewing them as opportunities to learn, adjust, and grow. This mental flexibility gives you an edge in life because you can navigate change without breaking under the pressure of it. And in the end, you realize that control was always an illusion. You were never truly in charge of every outcome. You were only in charge of how you showed up, how you responded, and what energy you carried into each moment. Once you fully embrace that, life stops feeling like a battle to win and starts feeling like an experience to live. And that's when everything changes. When you stop caring about people's approval, you step into a kind of freedom most never experience. So many decisions in life are made through the filter of what will they think, whether it's about your career choices, your relationships, your appearance, or even the way you speak. This invisible weight can be exhausting because you're constantly trying to mold yourself into something that will be accepted, liked, or admired. But the truth is, no matter what you do, someone will always disapprove. And when you truly internalize that, you stop giving your power away to the shifting opinions of others. Living for approval is like chasing a moving target. The standards of one group will contradict the expectations of another, and the moment you satisfy one, you'll likely disappoint someone else. The irony is, in trying to please everyone, you lose yourself in the process. You forget what you actually want because you've spent so much time performing a version of yourself that feels safe in the eyes of others. But when you release that need, your choices become clearer and your life becomes your own. It's not about becoming defiant or reckless. It's about aligning your life with your truth instead of other people's preferences. You begin asking yourself different questions, like what feels right for me? What would I do if no one was watching? What choice would I make if I didn't need anyone to understand it? These questions strip away the noise and help you hear your own voice again. And when you start making decisions from that place, you naturally attract the people, opportunities, and experiences that actually match your authentic self. One of the most powerful things that happens when you stop caring about approval is that your confidence shifts from external validation to internal self-respect. You're no longer waiting for likes, compliments, or permission to feel good about yourself. You build self-worth by keeping your own promises, standing by your own values, and living in a way that feels honest to you. The confidence that comes from that can't be taken away because it's not based on anyone else's mood or opinion. This shift also changes how you handle criticism. When you're dependent on approval, criticism can feel like a personal attack. It shakes your sense of worth because it challenges the very thing you've been chasing. But when you've detached from needing everyone to agree with you, criticism becomes feedback you can choose to accept or discard. You can hear someone's perspective without feeling the need to defend, prove, or bend yourself to fit it. It's liberating because you realize that disagreement isn't the end of the world. It's just part of living as an individual. Letting go of the need for approval also allows you to take bolder risks. When you're not paralyzed by the thought of what if they think I'm wrong or what if I fail in front of everyone, you become willing to try, to step out, to bet on yourself, even when the outcome is uncertain. Ironically, these are the very moments that often lead to the most growth, the greatest breakthroughs, and the most meaningful success. In the end, when you no longer live for the applause, you start living for the truth. You stop curating your life to be digestible for others and start building it to be nourishing for yourself. And once you taste that freedom, you realize it was never about getting everyone to like you. It was about liking yourself enough to live without their constant approval. When you stop caring, you begin to value your own peace above everything else, and that is where true power lies. For most of life, we are conditioned to believe that constant involvement, endless explanations, and overthinking every interaction is the way to keep relationships and situations from falling apart. We hold on tightly, thinking that our effort alone can change people or outcomes. But there comes a moment when you realize that clinging only drains you, and that the most powerful move you can make is to release your grip and protect your own space. When you no longer pour energy into fixing what was never yours to fix, you reclaim that energy for yourself, and suddenly life starts to feel lighter. Detachment in this sense is not coldness, it's clarity. It's understanding that not everything deserves your emotional investment, and not everyone has earned the right to have access to your inner world. You start to see that your mental and emotional resources are limited, and wasting them on situations that repeat the same cycles or people who show no real change is like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. The less you try to control what's beyond your influence is worth fighting, and that some battles only exist to pull you away from your own growth. Protecting your peace means you choose your battles wisely, and often the wisest choice is to not engage at all. The surprising thing is that when you create this kind of space, the people and situations that truly align with you begin to reveal themselves. Those who are meant to be in your life will respect your boundaries instead of pushing against them, and those who are not will naturally fade away without you having to force anything. You stop chasing, stop proving, and stop bending yourself into shapes that aren't yours, because you understand that anything real won't require you to abandon your peace to keep it. Prioritizing your peace also changes the way you see success and fulfillment. You begin to measure your day, handle them from a place of strength instead of desperation. You move through life knowing that you can face difficulties without losing yourself in the process, because your sense of self is no longer tied to chaos, conflict, or other people's approval. Peace becomes both your anchor and your compass. It grounds you when things feel uncertain and guides you when it's time to make choices that protect your well-being. In the end, valuing your peace above all else isn't selfish, it's essential. It's the recognition that you cannot show up fully for life if you are constantly drained, distracted, or emotionally scattered. And when you choose peace consistently, everything in your life begins to shift toward balance, clarity, and freedom.